Hello everyone, Brady here, and welcome to my beginner's guide to Sins of a Solar Empire 2. This is a pretty new game that's been in development for a while, and it's awesome. But everyone will start with a beginning planet. Vasari takes a little bit longer, but everyone will start with a beginning planet. And like any strategy game like this, you do have to focus very heavily on economy. And one way to do that is to start these upgrades early. You'll have a commerce upgrade here, unless you're Vasari. And you'll always have mining upgrades here. You want to get that income very early. You also need to start surveying, and make sure you do this on every planet that you get, so you can get these really cheap exotic resources that you can use to build capital ships later. So we'll go ahead and put one like that. And you can upgrade your logistics and defense slots here as needed. Normally you'll be going with logistics earlier, so you can build more buildings. Outside of that, unless you're Vasari, who starts with a capital ship, you'll need to choose what your starting capital ship is going to be. Normally I will go with the one here in the top left, which is normally the capital ship that is strongest on its own. These other capital ships are a little bit more based around supporting a fleet. You can get the second one. The second one always has the colonize skill, but really I would rather have the big bruiser battleship that comes in this top left, and then just get a missionary vessel in most cases. So go ahead and get that guy. Other than that, it's good to start creating a fleet up here in the top left here. You can add the battleship you just made by selecting the battleship and right clicking on the fleet, and then now when you click this fleet you can add ships to it, and they will automatically build from the closest factories and fly to join your fleet even after they're in other planets. Another thing I wish I learned earlier on is about this tooltip here and the stats. Durability gives you damage reduction on all of your HP, including shield points, armor points, and hull points. So durability is really good, and you'll get that on more powerful ships. Armor strength gives damage reduction on only armor points, but that stacks with the durability. Your armor can be one of your strongest hit point pools on your ship. We have max speed down there. That's, the higher that speed is, the faster a ship goes. As far as the weapons, it will list DPS and Pierce. Well, DPS is per weapon, so for this heavy beam here, there's 2 heavy beams, and that's 14 DPS each, for a total of 28 DPS. And they have 500 Pierce. Well, Pierce counteracts durability. So if you have 500 Pierce, it acts as if, say, against a 500 durability ship, it acts as if that ship has no durability, and it will bypass the damage reduction. However, Pierce does not work on armor strength damage reduction, so that armor strength damage reduction will still work even if the Pierce is 1000 or whatever. Things that pierce below the durability will hit into some damage reduction and do less damage than the DPS states. Yeah, main points though, the DPS is per weapon. Durability is good damage reduction for everything. Armor strength is damage reduction for armor. And yeah, it'll just help explain the ships a little bit better. Once you have this fleet started, you can go ahead and build a few support ships here, and now we just wait for them to go take neighboring planets. Now, as far as research goes, it's a very big part of this game. You need these. It's called Temple of Harmony and Temple of Hostility for Advent, but they have different names for every race. It's always pretty good to start with one of each of these so you can start your research. Now when you go into here, there's a whole bunch of stuff going on. There's always going to be some research that adds surface mining rate for crystal and metal. These are going to be useful all the time. Now, as far as colonization research, which is normally in this middle section, you'll only want to take the ones for planets that you discover nearby, or basically as needed. So If I were to discover an Arctic planet nearby, I would select this. If instead I found a primordial planet, I'd research this first. And you don't even really need to research the ones that you just don't find planets for, obviously. That would just be a waste of resources. You want to save as many resources as you can to help build up a big enough fleet to where you don't just get massacred every time. And speaking of fleet research, you can go over here to hostility. For every race, this top row right here is going to be fleet supply. This is always going to be a very important research, and you're going to want to upgrade this as much as possible. And really, it's good to have a fleet near max supply, because especially against the harder AIs, they will have fleets near max supply and they will attack you. So you want to be ready for that. Outside of that, this top section here is always for different ships. Depending on what kind of ships you want to get, obviously go for those. And these next two sections are going to be for different weapon upgrades and shield upgrades and stuff like that. And it really helps to make your fleet stronger. Starting out, you're going to want to upgrade the colonization that you need, probably first, and upgrade your economy down here with the surface mining rates and orbital extraction, stuff like that. Now, when you're actually fighting AI, the AI tends to target the ship that's closest to them, so you can move your battleship in front, and it'll tank most of the damage. If you select one of your fleets and look down here, you can always click again on the screen or something, and it will remove the build ship tooltip here. But we have commands down here. You can right click this to move in formation, which is very nice if you're not trying to run away and you're trying to attack with your entire fleet at once. You'll want to click move in formation. Sometimes I've found that if it was already set on move fast and you clicked forward and then afterwards you click move formation, it'll still go one ship at a time. So make sure when you switch to move in formation, you kind of resend that command. You can also right click this as well to engage close or hold position. It really depends on if you're attacking or defending or what kind of situation you're in as to which one of these that you'll want to use. Now, when you're actually in a fight or about to fight like this, you have a little screen up here that tells you which ships are in the system. You can actually select your fleet and right-click one of these different types for them to target that specifically. And if you hold Alt and right-click, it will kill all of these ship types before they start targeting other things. So a lot of times, for instance, this Javelin LRM cruiser does a lot more damage, and it is not much stronger defensively than these other ships, so you might want to target these first just to get rid of that DPS. And let's go over the stuff on the top of the screen. Most importantly, you have your credits, metal, and crystal right here, which is your economy in the game. Advent and TEC will have credits and metal and crystal, while Visari will only have metal and crystal. But either way, this is your economy, and this is very important to keep track of and bolster as much as possible. If we go over here, we've already talked about harmony and hostility research. One thing I did want to mention is every race has researches that give influence points, and you'll always want to get this pretty early, because minor factions are a big deal in this game, and they can really help you out in various ways. For instance, this one, you can get colony seed nanites, which give you a free mining level. This is basically an item you get for your ship to colonize with, and then they have just other little upgrades you can get, and every minor faction has different things you can get from them. Over here we have the diplomacy tab. Usually this will tell you how you win the game here in the top right, but otherwise here you can usually trade resources, and in free-for-alls you can try to make alliances or ceasefires with other players on this screen. On this tab here, we have Military Command. This is the easiest way to see all of your capital ships and which ones need leveling up. And yeah, you can just go ahead and level up whichever skills you want on this screen, as well as upgrade ship items and whatever you want to do. Once you have more capitals, they get a little bit harder to keep track of. You can always go to this screen to check things out. And the same with over here, you have your colonized planets. You can do your upgrades and even do buildings from here. You can also check your logistics and surface stuff here. So go to over here to the surface and make sure you have upgraded all your basic economy stuff and done your surveying. Then we can go over here to markets. This is something you'll be using a lot just if you have excess of one resource and you really need something else. After you discover certain minor factions, you can buy and sell metal or crystal or whatever you want to do. And then we can go over here to, in this case, Unity, but this screen exists differently for each race. And this is their special abilities screen. And you always get the special resource in a couple of ways, but the main way you can get it by getting the buildings that are in the bottom right of this screen. In this case, Temple of Unity. And whenever you build these, you'll get a point here, which then you can use to unlock clairvoyance or recall or whatever. And these special race skills are always pretty useful, so don't forget about them. They are easy to forget about. And then we have our exotic storage over here in production. It'll tell you how many refineries you have. Then you can queue up whichever exotics you want to build for later capital ships or researches or whatever you want. But this is where you keep track of your exotics. As far as other buildings, there's always going to be our factories here, and then our research buildings here. Also, you can build mines on asteroids later on after you get the orbital extraction upgrade. And here we'll always have a building that spreads your cultural influence. You don't necessarily have to get this early on, but it does provide bonuses to your ships or your economy depending on which race you are after a little while. So it is useful to build one of these on one of your planets, just so your friendly culture will spread on your own planets and you can get your bonuses from that. But you don't need to worry about it too early on. The exotic refineries, you'll need to build these later when you really want to make more capital ships, but outside of that, you don't really need it early on. And then over here we have our military buildings. These are useful for building a choke point, especially these star bases. Star bases are very strong and it takes a whole fleet to take them down. All of these buildings are useful in a choke point. For instance, if I only had one entrance to my group of planets, I could max out all these military slots and build up a defense just to help my fleet defend if it gets attacked. In most cases, your defense won't be able to defeat a fleet on its own, but it can make a big difference if your fleet is there fighting the enemy fleet. TEC and Advent will have special buildings here that can shoot or mess with enemy players in different ways, and that's something I'll cover more in my videos about every specific race. But I think that's pretty good to start out on. Just try to keep your fleets maxed out close to the max supply and use these tips to find some success in the game. Have fun out there, guys. Bye.